Welcome back to the KinetiQ Podcast, where we bring on guests each week and talk about all things movement, exercise, athleticism, longevity, action sports, outdoor physical activities, and what allows us to do them hopefully forever. So,
We realized it would make sense to have the founders tell their stories, which is myself and Bailey. And so he decided to put me in the hot seat first. So we are these next 2 weeks. It's me on today, him on next week, to get to tell our actual backstory as to what led our life path to us individually wanting to create what has now become KinetiQ and doing it as a team.
yeah. So obviously, I'm going to marry this woman, so I know just a thing or two about her, but it's going to be interesting, I think, for both of us to get to put my interviewer hat on and try to share some of your amazing stories and experience and wisdom with the rest of the world. Uh, so, without further ado, ready?
Sure thing.
Let's get into it. All right. Well, Allie, I want to start just by kind of giving everybody an idea of your athletic background. So, where did it start? I mean, we know you've been on two wheels for pretty much your whole life, but when did that start? How did that evolve? And kind of real quick, like big broad overview, how does that evolved? And where did that start?
Uh, Started when I was about 2. My parents brought me out to the BMX track. I'm the youngest in the family, and I looked up at my siblings and said, "I want to do that." So I got a bike for my 3rd birthday, and as you can say, the rest is history. But I did dabble in tennis, taekwondo in elementary school, and it just didn't stick. I always just wanted to go to the track and ride bikes with my friends, and then got into my teenage years and started to dabble into freestyle BMX. It didn't feel like my space yet. It's such a male dominated sport. And being like, I was 15, I think, so mid teenager, peak hormones, immature boys, all that fun stuff. And I didn't have the confidence yet to pretty much tell people to piss off when I needed them to. So freestyle wasn't for me yet at 15, but I still dabbled in it a little bit here and there, was always at the track. And then by the time I was 19, I had much higher interest in freestyle. I was getting more into dirt jumping. That led to a spinal injury that will probably be a big piece of today's story. And then while I was recovering from that injury, sitting behind the scenes on the sidelines, I realized I fell in love with freestyle more than racing. It was where I just wanted to ride bikes with my friends and be competitive against myself. But racing was you're competing against the other people, and there was such angst and drama and not good competition, is what it felt like. Because I'm like, the sport's confusing. We are what makes this sport fun. Why do we all hate each other just because we're competition? And then I discovered freestyle where you're competing with others, but it's you against you. At the end of the day, you can take inspiration from other people, but you're not racing against them one on one. And then, so that's a little hint into where I'm at now. Racing downhill is it's you against you on that track. So it brought me back to my roots of loving the drive for racing. Um, Yeah, a lot. Just everything on 2 wheels. So it started with BMX race and then BMX freestyle. I still do freestyle to this day, and dabbled a little bit in mountain biking beginning as a teenager as well, but that was cross country pedaling in South Florida. It was entertaining exercise. And then I moved full time on the road in a converted van and fell in love with mountain biking along the way. Um, so that's kind of the shortest version I can make that one.
That's a great little crash course overview, and now I'm kind of excited to punch into some of those stories that I know, but that I know we want to share with everybody else. So I want to kind of pick your brain a little bit about what BMX racing was as a kid to you. Was it, um, you've mentioned like with mountain biking, you've called it entertaining exercise. With racing, and it's head-to-head racing, but you also said that you just like riding your bike with your friends. How did the competition aspect show up, and when did that drive? Where did that come from? Was that something that you felt externally pressured, or did you feel a need, a drive to perform at your best when you were doing the things you loved? even all the way back at the racing standpoint, or did that come later with freestyle and downhill?
I'd say it was very internal. My parents just had us at the track as the family sport, so they raced themselves and they never put that extra pressure on ourselves as, the race parents on the sidelines, like pedal, 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 and screaming at their kids. Um, my parents were like, we know how hard it is out here, so we're not screaming at you and asking, like, why didn't you try hard enough? We know you're trying your best. And if you love this sport, we just want you to love this sport. We weren't going anywhere with the sport. The sport wasn't even in the Olympics yet. It was a just for fun sport at the end of the day. And then Gosh, yeah, I don't know. I just rode with my friends, and I think I just had that internal drive, especially as I think I got to the early teenage years and I could still compete against the boys. I remember the first time my old team manager signed me up for what was a turkey open. It was just a Thanksgiving race that if you sign up and make the main for this open, you get to take home a turkey. And I didn't know
Nice.
she signed me up, and I missed the first moto because of that. And I show up for the second moto, and I'm the only girl, and it's all of these boys talking crap on like, ha ha ha, and I got second, and I beat them all.
Nice.
And so, and then the main came about. I'm pretty sure I got second in the main too. So it's just one of those things that, like, the competitive drive came once I actually had competition to battle against. Like, I always had at least one person to race against with the girls' class, but that gate drop and having a full gate of actual competition is what kind of lit that on fire for me. So I think practice runs, I got more benefit than I did racing.
Interesting.
It was still such a male dominated sport. We still had a fair amount of girls throughout the years. Like, I had like all of my childhood best friends that cycled through were girls that were always like an age above or an age below. It was like that, like I said, for some reason you couldn't be friends with the people you raced. Anyone I raced had a mentality of they didn't like each other. And
That's so
so
weird.
it was like we were separated by age division and gender for the races, and I kind of was in a position where I was one of the fastest at the track for just age. um, and luckily the one girl in the state that was my competition was also from the same local track. We grew up together, so yeah, I don't know, once she got out of racing, it just
There wasn't much for you to drive or chase there
yeah. So I
anymore.
started to chase
Interesting.
nationals, and then that's the same year that I broke my back. So there's,
Yeah.
I don't want to dive too deep into the race story
Sure.
because truthfully, that's the least interesting part to me. So that's
Fair
where I
enough.
don't really quite know how to talk about
Fair enough. No, I'm just interested where like you said exactly. Like where did that spark? Because I see that drive in you. I see that athletic that like you're not just showing up to have fun. Like you want to be good at the things that you put your effort into, and
it.
especially the things you're passionate about. So curious where that started.
Yeah,
And
it
that's
wasn't
cool.
represented
That's a
around me. That's the thing.
yeah.
And like even my team I rode for, to be honest, I think it was just the parents wanted a drinking team.
Fair.
Like
Drink
it was the
drinking
party
team.
team. It was the party team of the Sunshine State Series. So it was
Drinking team with the BMX problem.
a fun time for the parents, and then the kids would just run wild. I always camped at the track, but the kids that did get the hotels, my parents would usually, on like the big championship nights, we'd drive over to the hotel people were staying at. We all got to be menaces throughout the hotel and ding dong ditch, all that fun stuff. So it was like kids being kids.
Sure.
And that was where it was like just having fun on bikes with
Yeah.
friends. But then trying to start to build my own training regimen honestly started when I was like probably 13 to 15, roughly, maybe. So I raced since I was like 4, technically. I
Mm-hmm.
was on the track at like 4.5, first state championship at 6. Um, and I just thought that training was riding my bike. And that kind of segues into, I know you were going to ask more
Yeah.
about my knee. When I was 10, I ended up with a growth spurt that caused, long story, but Osgood-Schlatters disease, and paired with overuse, it just became permanent over the years. And I wasn't exercising; I was just riding my bike. I was a child athlete that didn't know anything about athleticism yet, and my parents didn't know really much about athleticism. And the team I was on wasn't a team to actually have a coach and train. It was just we're just here and we just
Gotcha.
ride our bikes.
Gotcha.
And so I actually am 4 months, 5 months out of a surgery from that
Yeah.
chronic issue when I was 10 because I didn't know how to take care of my body back then.
Yeah. And I definitely want to dive into that, but I want to get to a couple other things first. Um, but definitely interesting to see. Like, so you started training kind of on your own then. Nobody told you how to work out, and the fact that you wanted to go to the gym and train beyond just on your bike, that means you really had a drive
Yeah.
to perform athletically, and really whether
Well, I wanted to
you know
reach the national level.
that
Like the
makes
way I
sense.
saw it was that I was staying in the state series because my family didn't have the funds to
Mhm.
do anything on the national level. We would volunteer at the local races and we would have entry fees covered and we would camp at the track. So it was stuff that we were doing it as a whole family. So my parents were doing it on a budget. And it was always just, nope, we can't afford nationals. We're not going to nationals. And so it was great when there was the occasional girls would come in from when they merged NBL and ABA and it became USA BMX. The ABA riders actually were really good competition for me. And so there was a year that I won every single race of the entire series. And I got first championship, obviously. And I was like, I think I'm going to quit. That was really boring.
Yeah.
Like I won an entire series flat out. And I was like, I don't really want to do this anymore.
Interesting.
And then the best thing happened. That merge happened that next year, and I had competition. I was like, this is the best thing ever. Like lining up in that gate drop and actually having that adrenaline of you don't know who's coming out first and that power and that drive you have to have. Like that's when I got to feel that. And then it would just come and go on whether or not I was going to have competition at a certain race.
Interesting.
And so I wanted it consistently and I knew I wanted to travel for national. So I didn't want to bump myself up to the Sunshine State Series pro level because that would still put me at pro level. And I knew I wasn't at the national pro level. And so I held back from that wanting to race nationals. And then the same year that I started traveling for nationals, I was 19 and that's when I broke my back.
Yeah. So that's a good
Riding dirt
segue.
jumps, not racing.
Right. So then that gives us a good background on like where you started as an athlete coming up through racing BMX, and then what kind of first off, how old were you when the merger happened? That year you won the whole thing, and then finally had competition again.
13 is probably about why I started training.
Interesting.
Probably. I don't remember what
Makes
year
sense.
that happened, but
And then you also mentioned like you started to get into freestyle then too. So already you kind of feel like, to me, it sounds like you kind of felt like you beat the game almost. Like you, I mean, to some,
I
and
didn't
then it
say
got
that.
harder
Like I
again.
wasn't like winning by a wash. It was
Okay.
just for some reason I didn't have the desire to be the one winning because the year I won, it didn't feel fun for me. So I almost
Gotcha.
felt like I let
You need the
myself
challenge.
stay in a lower position. It was weird. Like I didn't have the drive to be on the top with BMX. I just didn't. I just liked riding my bike. And then when I started riding freestyle, I realized I just liked the airtime.
I was gonna say
And
what kind of made you make that jump from racing over to freestyle, and what
I just
how did
didn't.
that compare?
I didn't like the energy at the track.
Interesting.
It just wasn't fun anymore, and I feel like that's one that like comes and goes for everybody, and like the people I met through the sport were amazing through all the years, but it just, as I said, it's the one that I don't really like talk about these days because it's,
Sure.
I don't know, I'd say the biggest thing that I do remember is once I was fully transitioning, where I had my spinal injury and I was laying in a hospital bed, and I said, if and when I can ride a bike again, I'm treating myself to a custom build. And at the time I said that to myself, I thought it was going to be a race bike. And by the time I was healing, I realized it was going to be a freestyle bike.
Interesting.
And what happened was I had two back-to-back events in particular that I remember real strong.
Yeah. So walk us like, back up a couple steps and see. So when did you start riding freestyle? Was it the same time as you were still racing, or was it more of a hard switch?
I was 15 when I first started riding freestyle a little bit. So my sister won a raffle that she won a complete Sabrosa. Sabrosa contacted her and they're like, we know you don't need a complete. Do you want us to swap this out for like a frame or something like that? And she said, no, actually, I want to surprise my mom with this freestyle bike. So my mom got a freestyle bike. and my mom never rode her freestyle bike. So then I started riding her freestyle bike. And so that's how I got into freestyle BMX was when my sister was in town, I would go to the skate park. And then when she was out of town, because she was away at college, I was like, well, I had this group of boys I was riding with, and again, it just became immature teenage
Sure.
boy
Wasn't quite.
energy.
Yeah.
So it wasn't time. And then I was like, I have girlfriends at the track. I'm gonna go back to that, which also shows where this sport has changed in the decade. Is like there are a lot more women. There's still not a ton,
Mhm.
and maybe it's media based, but there's seems like there's a lot more representation in the sport now. So men kind of don't stare down women quite as badly as they used to if they show up at the skate park. It's usually like stoke more than it's hard to
That's good.
say.
But so then lead us into what led to your big accident. Like I know we've mentioned the back injury, but where did that start? You mentioned there was a previous incident that might have led to it, or that happened riding freestyle.
Yeah.
How
So
did we get there, and what did that change for you as an athlete and as a rider? Kind
yeah.
of feel free to.
So we're fast forward now to the age of 19.
Okay.
As I said, dabbling in freestyle anytime my sister was in town, and she might have been living back at home at this point. I don't remember, but she would put on video parts and I would see, dirt jumps and big flowy bowls. I remember we were always looking at bowls in Oregon. I was like, I want to go, that looks fun for me. And just looking at freestyle BMX, I would look at it and visually see it and be like, that looks like fun. I want to be able to do that. And that's all it was. It was as simple as that. So I started trying to dabble in dirt jumps and who find dirt jumps to be able to ride. And, South Florida is very spread out and to find technical and advanced things like that, it's hard to work your way up with gaps. And so I was working on a dirt set that was an hour and a half from home. That was like my first set of gaps that I hit.
Mhm.
And then I got to go to Ray's Mountain Bike Park, and that in the profile room showed me like I can hit the biggest line here. I know how to ride a bike. Airtime is awesome. And then a month later, I go out to Santos, which is in Ocala, Florida, and I wanted to work myself up to their big set there. So I was hitting just their table line there, which I think was even a wooden table line. It just was
Weird.
kind of janky. And I was like, I want the big, flowy clay dirt jumps. Like it just
Hmm.
set my heart on fire. Couldn't tell you why, but just
Yeah.
watching people ride, I'm like, that's what sets my heart on fire. That's what I want to be able to do. And I hadn't done it yet at that scale, but I was like, well, I've done gaps and I've done tables that big. So I should be able to do this jump. There's no reason I can't do this jump. So I spent that whole day working through that mental angst of dropping in for that jump. And people are like, do you want video? No, I don't want video. It's too much pressure.
Mhm.
Okay. Everyone's hyping me up. Like when I'm ready to go, I'm ready to go. I've had a couple people I like towed into speed check and I'm like, hit the brakes, not committing. I'm just like,
Mhm.
not even going off the lip, but I've at least felt the lip at this point, rolled up it and said, okay, like this was my first proper dirt jump I was going to hit. And at whatever point I finally go and I hit it, and I have no idea what went wrong. Nobody
Oh,
knows what went
jeez.
wrong. I don't have video of it. Nobody saw the backside of the jump. So everyone saw that I cleared the jump. It looks like I probably cleared it fine. And I was on some colored tires. So realistically, I probably just slipped out. Those things were not very grippy.
Mm.
And so I was on a Sabrosa Complete, which just simply like a complete with colored tires, like
So not
is
maybe
not
not the
great on
best.
dirt. And so I slipped out, I assume, smacked my head, was loopy concussed. I have a 10-minute video of myself that I watched back so many times because I just was like, this is me speaking. I don't have any recollection of this.
That's scary.
And I was like repeating over and over. My thing that I kept repeating,
Mm.
did I at least do some gnarly shit?
Oh jeez. Oh
And so
jeez. Oh
I
jeez.
um
Oh
yeah,
man.
got to go in an ambulance for the first time. That was also another thing that I was ridiculously excited about for an unknown reason. And I remember that day as if I woke up in the ambulance. It was like a flash. Like for what I remember from my own view, I've watched video so many times and I've talked to enough people to kind of get like the whole recap of that day again. But I remember vaguely a good amount of that day and that weekend
Mhm.
up until working myself up for the jump, and then memory is completely wiped, and then it's as if I woke up in the ambulance, like I opened my eyes and it's as if I closed my eyes again. It was just a flash,
Mhm.
and then it was as if I woke up again once x-rays were over. Like we all know I wasn't actually asleep. So
Right.
um apparently I seized with that one too. So it was
Jeez.
like rated a
That's scary.
mild concussion, but it wasn't a mild concussion. And then
Yeah.
so coming back from that, I didn't know anything about post concussion syndrome or anything like that actually until more recent years, and that was 8 years ago now. And so 3 months later, I'm at a set of dirt jumps, and it wasn't even like I was planning to ride that night. I flew up to Ohio Dreams to work for the summer. We flew in for staff week. We're just prepping the whole facility. Like I was going to be the action sports counselor for like all sports. Um, I don't know how to put that one.
Yeah.
Um,
Like
I'm
the
totally having just brain farts on everything as to how
That's
to
okay.
make the story make sense.
No, you're good.
Um,
So you had the gnarly concussion in Florida, and then how long was it before you had to go coach at Ohio Dreams at
so
the
it's
summer camp?
3 months,
So 3 months later,
which
after
I thought
this,
would have been plenty of time.
yeah,
You would think should be plenty of time.
we've learned a lot about concussions in the last decade.
Yeah. And so, yeah, turns out having a panic reaction is part of a post concussion syndrome thing. And it honestly made me feel better knowing that I learned that about 2 years ago through a friend that was healing from her own multiple concussions, that she spent a lot of money learning what was wrong with her brain and how to fix things.
Mhm.
And I witnessed her have the panic reaction in a moment that like
Mm,
wasn't exactly a reason to panic, but it's why she had to stop riding at the
interesting.
professional level she was at for a good period of time. She had to put some time down from riding because she had to heal her brain. And what it came down to was there was times that she should have been able to trust her riding, but she would suddenly snap.
Huh.
And I was thinking, like, that's interesting to me because I never understood why I broke my back that night because I did everything right. It was my first time touching dirt again since the concussion. It was my first time touching the freestyle bike again since the concussion.
Mm,
But I had been on my race bike, I'd been
okay.
doing races. It's not like it was my first time on a bike again. And so I'm working through the small line, which is always the more technical one. Big line's always easier,
True.
but I'm working through the smaller line, and it was, a bunch of tables that I could work through, and then it was a lippy double, and then it was a tiny gap. And it's funny because looking back at it, I mean, I had this almost, like, I don't want to say disappointment. I had this like almost embarrassment to even talk about what happened for a while because the jump that it happened on, it felt pathetic that it happened. And so I psyched myself out from jumping just the lippy double that technically could have been rollable. I think I was at a speed that I think I would have
Mhm.
cased it and would have sucked anyway. No matter what, it would have sucked. But instead, I panicked. I panic braked and I said, I don't know what went wrong last time. I don't know what's going to go wrong this time. I need to stop. Like I was locked in of like working up to the line, like roller or like manual through everything, jumped through everything, and then once it came to the one that I actually had to like put commitment into, I was always stopping before that point. And
Mhm.
this last run was the one of, okay, I've got the speed, I hit everything else smooth, I jumped through everything else, I'm going to jump through this next one, and I'm going to jump the gap one that shouldn't have been scary but was terrifying. Anyone that rides dirt jumps kind of knows you got to work small and everything's irrational fear. um, I panicked and I just said, I need to stop right now. And I start fishtailing and I launched myself off the side of the lip instead of going off it straight. And I had to ask people later on. I went back, I said, like, what? Where was my bike? Where was my body?
So, so walk me back. Paint the picture for me. Like, where are we? So we're at Ohio Dreams now, coaching,
Mhm.
and there's these jumps you're working through. And the last time you did a big commitment jump, that was like a proper dirt jump, you blacked
Knocked
out,
myself silly.
knocked yourself out. We don't know how or why. And so you've 3 months later worked yourself back up to where you think you can progress again into the same level. are there other people around? You said it was staff week, so there's no kids or campers around, but are there other people riding with you? What time of day is it?
Yeah.
Set the scene a little bit.
So it was evening
What
now at
happened?
this point. Oh, that's where I started to say, like, we weren't even planning to ride because it was staff week. They said, like, oh, we're doing a great job. You guys can all either go ride dirt jumps or you can go hit the slip and flip. And it was like 60 degrees outside, and the slip and flip was literally a giant
Slip and slide.
slip and slide into a kicker into the pool, and it was way too
Cold.
cold for my Floridian
Fair.
blood. And so I was like, of course I'm gonna go ride dirt jumps. And so there was a bunch of us riding jumps, but all of the guys were hitting the big line and I was on the little
The
line.
progression line.
So I was on the progression line. It was all weaved through trees. And so I was riding with people, but I didn't actually have like a riding buddy that I was locked in with. It
Got
was
it.
just we were riding in a group. And then I did the kind of technically one moored myself. I knew it was my last lap and I knew it was getting dark. And I kind of said to myself, like, oh, my phone and my flannel is up at the top. So I'm going to take another run and I'm going to go to get my phone and flannel. And that's the one that yeah. So that was honestly something I had to work through too, because I, at that point, ended up being completely alone and had to holler for some time for people to come find me. And I remember all of that vividly. And
So
I somehow like thought I didn't get concussed with that fall, but I like bleeped out a portion of the jumps, and then I remember everything from that
huh.
night.
So you guys are riding. You're almost done riding, and it's getting dark, and you got one more lap, and it's kind of your last chance if you're going to hit this jump today or not. And the last time you big commitment, ended up knocking yourself out. Get scared, panic, because now we know that's post concussion syndrome symptom, and you like fishtailed off the edge of the jump and like just
Dove,
ejected.
dove headfirst into the ground.
Oh, okay.
Have we not talked in depth about my night?
We have,
Okay.
but
I know I don't usually talk about it, but I feel like we've talked
yeah.
about that.
So no, I just don't want to leave out any details.
I know.
But
For the live, I know you're cutting, but for this, still, like, it's.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm like dragging on stuff that I don't actually.
I can edit it.
To.
Yeah.
It's not like I don't want to talk about it, but I like more of I'm already like on the race side of it. I'm like, I don't want to sound like I'm like talking shit on the entire BMX race community.
No.
Like, there's things as to why I'm already like.
Yeah, but we're like leaving out key details, like how did you crash? What happened? So you landed on your head.
Yes.
And it compressed your spine.
Yeah.
And what was the injury? What happened from there?
Burst fracture to my T9 vertebrae, fractured my T10. Ended up being an emergency next day surgery. That later needed a correctional surgery because that one wasn't done right.
Jeez. So you're in Ohio alone, basically away at camp, and this happens. And what goes through your mind, like either immediately after the crash or like when you have to go for surgery?
I was in denial at first. So I've broken back when I was 5. I fell out of my bed and broke my arm. And I remember having the idea of it being a cinder block. And when I was 12, I fell at the track and I chipped and dislocated the same arm, chipped my other arm. And so still a little bit of a break. And I remember it like it felt like a cinder block. That's just how I would describe it. It was just the heaviest weight, which cinder block's not that heavy, but for whatever reason, my brain says cinder block. And when I broke my back, I felt that heavy weight, but I was in denial because it's not one of those things that you hear of. It's not like you break your arm, you break little things, but you don't hear breaking your spine.
Right.
And so I thought I just I thought I scorpioned, and looking at the X-ray, I lawn chaired, but
lawn chair.
I folded completely like that. But I thought I scorpioned. I thought it was like heels to head vibe.
Okay.
With the way I hurt, I just thought I folded myself in a weird way, and I thought I was just uncomfortable because I could feel my legs the entire time. And when it happened, when I fell, I was wearing a full face, and I remember sitting up on my knees. So I was like squatted on the ground still, but at least sat my body up. And I took my helmet off and I saw blood drip to my legs. And I was like, that's not good. And that was the moment that I was like, something's not good. I had blood drip to my legs from who knows what, and then I was wearing gloves, so I tried to feel my face, and I was like, okay, well, it turns out my helmet slid down and I broke my nose. So then I was, my nose was bleeding from that. But as soon as I said something's not right, I just laid down on my side, and at this point, I wasn't even like flat on the ground. I was up against like the side of a built
Side
up
of the
jump a
jump.
little bit, side of a jump, and yeah, I ended up having to holler for some people to come find me, and then as soon as somebody came around the corner, I was like, I need help, like, get help. Like, this was not just a one person job. I was like, this is not a good one. And so, yeah, they ended up having an ambulance come in, all of that. And I, um, I remember telling the camp owner I was 19, so they didn't have to call my parents. I was there as an
Mm.
employee, not as a camper. And so I said, do not tell my parents until we know what's going on. I don't want to worry them for no reason. I want to notify them with answers, not notify them with panic. And so, because I was in denial, I literally thought it was just,
Gonna be fine. Yeah.
yeah. And so my mom ends up getting a call at probably like midnight of like, Chris, owner of the camp, goes, all right, your daughter's fine. She goes, like, my daughter wouldn't be fine if you're calling me at midnight. What's
Right.
going on? And so, yeah, just whole crazy chain of events there. And the next day I'm going in for surgery, and I remember asking, like, I overhear you guys sounding like you're in shock that I can still feel my legs. What's going on? And they're like, they were in shock that I wasn't paralyzed based on what my x-rays looked like. And so they're putting me in for surgery. And I said to them bluntly, I was just like, if you guys are surprised I'm not paralyzed as is, what are the odds I could come out of this surgery not paralyzed? Or sorry, what if what are the odds I could come out of this surgery paralyzed? And they said, we're going to do our best to, not have that happen, but the risk is there. And I got to do a podcast a couple years ago where I told that part of the story, and it didn't occur to me until Joe said, really, like, that was your immediate thought process, was because
Yeah.
as soon as they told me that, my mind went to Scotty Kramer, Bruce Cook, Aaron Wheels, and Chick Lindsay, who races on the downhill trikes, or she used to. She was just somebody that popped up on my Instagram feed. So all these people was, Scotty Kramer had his accident less than a year before mine. So he was still broadcasting everything on his YouTube channel as his recovery.
Mhm.
And the hardship he had to go through, but what he was able to get through. And then Bruce Cook was somebody that I got to see at Nitro Circus the summer before, that is a paraplegic FMX rider. And he had a customized uh, moto just to be able to still do backflips
It's
on the
crazy.
Nitro Circus ramp. And I'm like, holy shit. So I was on the brink of possibly being paralyzed, and my mind went to these paraplegic action sport athletes. And I said, my life is not over, because I had to know that my life was not over.
More
There's
than your life, your athletic life,
my
your
athletic life.
action
Yeah, it's like
sports.
my life has always been athleticism. And so,
Yeah.
like, I needed to know that if I were paralyzed, my action sports life was not over. And there were people that came to mind immediately that I could name off the bat. And that part of that story is engraved in my mind because of the impact they got to make for me. And it's people that just are existing with their own struggles, living their lives and living their best lives with it. Making the most out of the circumstances they can. And they were an inspiration to me, and they were my rock when I needed it in my hard time. And
So,
so,
so I guess what helped pull, I guess that's what helped pull you through that surgery, but
mhm,
kind of having that hope, right? Is what you've told me about.
yeah. And then I came out of surgery and I was not paralyzed. I was, they said, you're fine. Your spine is fused, T6 to T12, 100% recovery. Go home.
Uh,
Yeah.
sounds like
The
that's not
first
the end of
surgery
that
wasn't
story.
done. So, before the Ohio hospital would send me home, I did have to find a doctor that would see me as a follow up. And
Okay.
so Ohio Health pretty much said, you can stay in town in Ohio and come to your original surgeon. I never saw that original surgeon
Interesting.
again. Never met him. He never came in the room. Never saw this human.
Interesting.
And so they released me from the hospital because my dad was able to find a doctor down in South Florida that would take me in a couple
Mhm.
weeks. And so I show up for that appointment a couple weeks later, and back at the Ohio hospital, I said, 100% recovery? Okay, cool. And they're like, yep, your follow up doctor will get you more information on things. I said, do I have a back brace? No, no back brace. Okay. They said I was just fused by hardware and that the hardware was holding me up now. And I didn't need a back brace to heal from that either.
Oh
And
my.
so,
I'm no doctor, but that doesn't.
I,
That's a bit of a head scratcher.
yeah, but I'm just like,
Okay.
I'm a 19-year-old kid, adult, early adult, being like, I'm fine. Okay. I'm going to get to ride my bike again one day. I just went through this freak accident and this is best case scenario. I'm okay. I'm fine. 100% recovery. Are you serious?
That's
And I
fantastic.
was like, this is amazing. And then so I go home and, summer in South Florida, it was like, all right, well, to get out of bed, I'm going to go, my Nana would come pick me up and we would go walk around the mall just as a way to get out of bed because it
Mhm.
was, 90 to 100 degrees outside. So
Yeah.
I'd be up and about doing what I could to stay active.
Mhm.
And then my follow up visit came about a couple weeks later. And I hand my x rays into the window and I sit in the waiting room for what felt like forever. And then the doctor finally comes out and he's apologizing because of how long the wait took. And he said, we did not realize until you got here that my ladies at the front desk made a mistake scheduling you. We didn't realize that you are another surgeon's patient and you are within, you know, the 90-day parameter of like legally I should be sending you away right now, but as a human, I cannot. He said
Jeez.
this is bad. And so I went maybe 2 weeks following my surgery thinking like best case scenario, I'm gonna be perfectly fine, to then meeting who became my second surgeon, saying, well, that's a lie. Your spine's going to disintegrate.
Oh no.
Your spine's going to break down. The surgery that they put in you, you could trip and fall and it can be ripped out from your vertebrae.
Oh
And my spine
Jesus.
wasn't straightened back all the way either. And so I don't remember the exact degree that I crushed it to, and whatever degree that scientifically it has to sit back upright so that gravity doesn't take over as like, turning into a hunchback. But he described it all at the time. This is
Mhm.
8 years ago, so I
Sure.
don't remember the facts behind it. But he pretty much just said my spine was at a degree that gravity was going to take over. It wasn't an if, but a when.
Mhm.
And that it could be anywhere from now to 2 years to 5 years. He's like, I don't know when it's going to happen, but it is going to fail. And I cannot touch you until it fails because you are healthy right now and it is a high risk surgery. And you are somebody, it was so
Right.
many different legal reasons as to why he couldn't take me in for surgery to fix this problem. It was just going to turn into a waiting game. And so I was just distraught. I was like, really? Like, that's crazy. I remember the biggest part was that I still said to him at the time, I said, I don't care if I am just rolling a bicycle one day.
Mhm.
I am going to be on a bike again one day. Because that's what he said. He's
That's
like, I'm
huge.
not trying to be a doctor that is going to just say, you can't ride a bike again. It's not as simple as that.
Right.
He says, literally, you cannot even take a tumble without this ripping out of your vertebrae. Like, you cannot ride a bike again. And I said, I don't care what level. I'm
Yep.
going to be on two wheels again because this was my life. Like,
Absolutely.
my bike was my
Yeah.
entire existence since,
Yeah.
as long as I can remember. And so, yeah.
So then, and you told me a bunch that that's what got you through is having that. You knew
Knowing
that
I'd be
for
on a bike again.
knowing for a fact that you were whatever it took, you were going to get back on a bike.
Mhm.
So fast forward,
Mhm.
how long did that process take? I guess when did it fail? When did it you have your next surgery, and then when did you get back to riding, whether it just be
Yeah.
rolling or properly?
Yeah. So it was about 6 weeks from the time of the initial surgery before that surgery failed.
Okay.
So I saw him about 2 weeks after, and he
Wow.
said, "Okay, we're going to keep a close eye on you." I saw him a couple weeks after, and it was some X-rays. I was like, okay, yeah, we'll see you in a couple weeks again. And by the time I did X-rays, I believe it was for the 6 week follow up, or maybe it was like 6 weeks from our first visit. So it was 6 or 8 weeks from the initial surgery.
Wow.
I get new X-rays, and I had a pain start to come up in my side too. That I was like, oh, I'm seeing my doctor in a week, so I'll just wait and talk to him about it. And it turns out that the pain I was feeling was actually that my spine was starting to compress down again, and it was actually pushing against a bone fragment on my rib. And so, also through all of this, he was able to give me further detail as to the reason I wasn't paralyzed with the initial fall. He put it as no reason that you could have controlled this, but you have a 30% larger than average spinal cord.
That's lucky.
That's why you're not paralyzed. Also, he was very open to express that he was impressed by my physique even 2 weeks after such a traumatic surgery and all of that, to say my strength and athleticism probably helped me a lot too. And so that kind of goes back to like that knee problem I mentioned in training for my racing and everything like that. Like I was training for nationals now at this point, and so I started to actually give a shit about my strength and my ability more than just riding a bike. And so he kind of gave credit to that. So that planted a seed for me there, which is a big piece to where I'm at now. But then also 6 weeks, spine's breaking down. He tells me, we're going to have to go in for another surgery. I ended up getting that surgery. By the time it happened, it was like 3 months post surgery. And then he said, you can be back on your bike in a year.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was like, you told me never, and now you're telling me a year. That is amazing news.
That's huge.
And so again, it was like that. I'm gonna build like my dream bike. Like
So
when I can ride a bike again, I'm building a custom build. And I don't, whatever reason, I was like, I don't know what it's all gonna be, but I've only ever bought completes or had hand me downs. Like everything was just always I never got to have all the parts I wanted, and
it's time to have something of your own, right?
And so
what an emotional roller coaster of concussion, panic, traumatic spine injury. You're gonna be fine, full recovery. Just kidding, it didn't last 6 weeks. You're never riding a bike again. Hey, I think a year from now you'll be all right.
Yep. And then 3 months later, he told me I could roll on a bike again.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then 3 months after that, I was fully healed.
That's fantastic.
So instead of 1 year, I was actually back on a bike 6 months after my first surgery. Sorry, 6 months after my second surgery.
So what's your secret? If you could boil it down to one thing or two things, like what
just
minimized the risk and what got you through all of that? Because there's other people. I have no doubt that other people would have had one of those things happen, much less all of them, and either just mentally accepted it or been way worse off injury wise. So after 8 years of reflecting on it, any common threads?
I don't know if we want to dig up all of the roots as to why I was that strong already as a 19-year-old.
No, but that alone is one. If it's just if you can being abnormally physically fit,
it wasn't
was beneficial.
Even that. It was about being mentally strong.
Good.
And knowing this wasn't the end, and that there's so much more to life, and I wasn't gonna accept. So I think the fact that I was in denial, especially the first night that it happened, I really think the fact that it would have never crossed my mind to have been paralyzed
probably helped keep you not paralyzed.
Subconscious is capable of some insane things. So there's some further reading I've done since then that had me almost have that thought too. I'm like, is it the fact that I was in denial that it wouldn't have even crossed my mind for my subconscious to think that it's okay for, there's a lot of everything with the neuron connections going on that is very intriguing that I'd love to dive deeper into like one day for myself to learn more on.
Absolutely.
But that's just like one piece of it. And then just knowing like, this is just getting started. And when I fell, I was chasing the thing that I wanted to be doing at a much higher level than the level of which I was doing it. Like I enjoyed riding my bike when I was racing, but there's just something about the feeling I got when watching dirt jumps and watching just the higher level on the freestyle side
Mhm.
that I was like, I want to be able to do that. And there's no way that this just got taken from me this early. And like, I'm just getting started, is what it felt like. And so I don't know. I just didn't give myself the option. Like, I sat and I contemplated it. I
Sure.
sat and I said, well, is this really for me? Like, do I love this because I love this, or do I love this because this is a family sport that my family got me into? And so through my recovery, I think another thing that helped is that um, with all of us in the family riding bikes, we had a lot of bikes. And so my brother one year for Christmas helped me build a shelf in my room that actually had hooks for my three bikes. I had my BMX race bike, BMX freestyle, and a cross country mountain bike. And so um, this whole time I'm healing, I'm staring at my three bikes.
Awesome.
And so, and I would still go to the track with my mom because she was still racing. So it's like, okay, well, she's driving to the track anyway for herself. I'm going to get out of bed. I'm going to go to the track. My sister was living at home. That refreshes my memory there because she was living at home by then. And I would go to the skate park with her. So that's why I fell in love behind the scenes, was like,
That
I
makes sense.
was still just doing something to get myself out of bed.
Good.
So at first, like first initial months out of surgery, like it was really brutal, but I had to just fight through. And that's where Scotty Kramer comes into mind too, because I got to meet him almost, I think, at a month, or like within the month, four to
Mhm.
5 weeks post surgery of a surgery that put me in the most excruciating pain you can imagine, like
Mhm.
drugged up and everything. That surgery was far more painful than the initial break.
Wow.
And so as Casey said on our episode last week, though, is like get off the drugs as soon as you can. And so it was just one of those things that within a month after my second surgery, I had the opportunity to meet Scotty Kramer, who had his injury that is very public online as well, in case anyone wants to look into what happened to him. But he um, he was something I could look forward to. I told my physical therapist that I wanted to make it to a BMX event
Mhm.
in a couple weeks, and I knew that I was in no condition to travel. And I said, what do I have to do to be able to travel? And my sister drove me to the race. It's not like I was, or not the race, the event. It was
But to
like,
be able to get up and go just weeks out of surgery like that alone is, like you
yeah,
said, something
yeah.
to work towards.
Yeah, so I had something like a date on the calendar, something to work towards, and then I just always kept myself surrounded by it. As I said, laid in bed staring at my bikes, I had to sit and contemplate, is this my sport, or am I in it because my family put me in it? And like at my core, I was like, no, I love this because this is what sets my heart on fire. It's not that I'm still with it because it was ever an expectation from the family. It's that this is my sport, and shit, now that I had to question that, I'm going to come back and make this my sport.
It's awesome.
And so I feel like I came back and I had more drive than I ever did before, because now I had something of like,
Now it's 100%
it's my
yours.
sport now. And all it came down to, honestly, why I ended up switching was like the track time, because I would
Interesting.
travel all the way to the nationals, and you would get a very short amount of practice time, and then you would get your race runs. And
Mhm.
that's the only time you could ride, period. The entire facility was just based on the track was always being used by somebody.
Mhm.
And so when I started doing skate park contests just for fun, it was like, well, this half of the skate park is where the contest is going on, and this half of the skate park is just open ride all day.
Cool.
And so I think that's part of why I love downhill now too, is like this portion of the track, this portion of the mountain is the track that everyone's racing on, but you can still party lap everything all day. And
That's
so
cool.
I think the big difference was like, I just wanted to ride my bike.
Sure.
And so,
It's hard to get better at doing something if you can't do it. You know, what is it like? There's no replacement for doing the thing. So if you just want to get better riding your bike and have more fun riding your bike, it's kind of, I can see how you'd be drawn to the opportunities that gave you more seat time and more time on two wheels.
yeah, I mean, I
That's
was
cool.
never even in it for like what the sport was going to become. I just love riding my bike and
Yeah.
still do.
Yeah.
So simple as that.
Absolutely. Well, that's what I mean when
And
I
the mentality
yeah.
too. That's what I started to say earlier. Is I have two back-to-back events that I can tell you is like one of the core memories as to switching from freestyle to race and being like, yeah, that's kind of behind me.
Hmm.
It was one of my first races back after breaking my back. I did a skate park contest the weekend before, and I did a race, a national, the weekend after. And I was only doing the skate park competitions because they wanted to give a girls class, but girls weren't there. And so I was like, well, if I'm entering, then at least it shows everybody on the sidelines that it's our sport too.
Mhm.
And so I was never entering skate park competitions to compete at a competitive level at that time. It was just
Opportunities for progression and to
yeah,
participate in the
it was
sport.
just fun.
Yeah.
It was good energy. It was great people that ran the thing, and so it just felt welcoming. And everyone's like, "Yeah, just do it. It'll be fun, and it's a blast." And you get to scream and holler for your friends all day when they're running, doing their contest runs. It's just fun. And so I remember the announcer, like looking back at the video, they're announcing like the comeback that I had, how amazing it is that I'm back on a bike, and everyone like throughout the entire place was just, giving me that loving energy for being back. And then it's obviously because the announcer made that known, but
Sure.
even before that, even just for the immediate people surrounding me, anybody realizing like I'm riding my bike with a back brace on, like what's going on? Because I, after the surgery, the second surgery, got a back brace, all that fun stuff. Not that back brace, but I got like a back protector, like
Sure.
pretty much like chest protector, but
Fully
literally
like
got
down
one that
now.
was just for the
So
back. And so I used to ride in that, called it my turtle shell. Um, but we yeah, I had that weekend, just vibes were immaculate. And then the weekend after, I had a mom that brought me up to a national. She was just one of the track moms that adored me. I helped coach her kids. So she's like supportive track mom, and she comes like hollering and cheering for me after my race because I felt like I had a great race. So I didn't think it was anything weird. I was proud of myself for having finished a race because when I was not back on a bike yet, I was having dreams that there was always some freak reason as to why I couldn't cross a finish line.
weird.
And so for me, it was not weird to me that she was cheering for me and happy for me that I raced because I felt like I raced really good. Like it was competitive. Like I
Yeah.
totally got motoed, but I still felt like I was with the pack and it was a competitive race.
Mhm.
And so she's coming and she's cheering for me. She's like, "I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you." And I was just like going along with it. I was like, I was pumped. And I hear somebody in the background just like, I've never heard somebody so excited to get motoed.
And moto, that's just like eliminated from the ground.
Eliminated from the not even making
Interesting.
like you get motos, you get
Yeah.
semis, you get mains. Like
Sure.
it's like I didn't even make it out of the first round. And so somebody's just not even
Just
knowing the situation as to why this is meaningful and just judging instead of just like, God, I've never heard somebody so excited to get motoed. And it's just judgy girls.
sure.
It was just catty, whatever. And I didn't
But
like I
stark
didn't even have to
contrast.
acknowledge it. It was just the contrast. I was like,
Freestyle's fun.
freestyle's fun.
Nice.
And so, because it wasn't the first that energy has
Sure.
existed, it was just funny to have it back
Back to back, right as soon as you finally recovered from this
Yeah.
horrific event, you
Yeah.
kind of get a
Like nobody
chance.
cares.
Now that it's almost like now that you've decided, okay, no, bikes are my thing, genuinely, from my heart, what flavor do I want to chase?
Yeah.
And you kind of got to try from kind of from fresh perspective again, like restart.
Yeah.
So,
And from there, I just started
yeah,
riding freestyle just because I loved it, and I've got to do some cool things with it. Like I've gotten to work with Woodward and do things like that for just go and be places. And I just love the jams and just it's just good
absolutely,
energy. So
that's awesome.
yeah.
So there's a third bike in your room too. How did mountain bikes come into the picture, and when, and how has that evolved as well over the last couple of years?
So when my dad decided for himself that he was not racing BMX anymore, mountain biking was a safer option for him because it was same thing. Even in he was like, I felt like I got crashed one time. Like I don't remember how he broke his collarbone, but he
Mm-hmm.
pretty much was like
He
not
didn't make a mistake.
alone. It wasn't a completely alone situation. It was one of like just racing is very cutthroat, and I think it was even like practice. It was like
Oh,
I
jeez.
don't remember. I was 10 when that one happened, but he broke his collarbone racing BMX, and he was like, well, somebody's got to pay the bills. Like,
Sure.
I shouldn't be doing this if it's going to actually break me and take me out, but I'm going to ride mountain bikes instead because, it's less risk. You're not in a gate with 8 people that are also trying to crash you for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And
You're in
so,
full control of your own destiny. If it's just you
yeah,
on
and
the
that
trail.
was another reason I also switched to freestyle too. It's like
Right.
you occasionally have like, oops, somebody snaked you at the skate park, and you might sometimes end up falling at the skate park because of somebody else. But for the most part, if you fall at the skate park, it's because of your own doing. If you fall in a race, it's usually that somebody crashed you. Like, and this was not long after my surgery of getting back to racing, and I was like, I'm going to back down if it turns into aggressive racing. And some chick got aggressive with me, and I fought back and I came out of it clean. But after that race, I was like, I'm going to be pissed if I end up hurting myself because somebody else takes me out.
Yeah.
I'm going to be pissed at myself if
Sure.
I end up hurting myself because my adrenaline won't let me back down. And so that was another factor to getting out of racing
Makes
too,
sense.
is the draw to freestyle was, if I'm falling, it's at my own doing. It's because I'm pushing myself, and it's my own stupidity if I fall.
Yeah.
Versus if somebody else crashes me, I'm going to be livid. Like, it
Sure.
just is a different perspective. And so that was also the draw away from racing. So I was like,
You can kind of ride within your limits and not
Yeah.
get upside down because of somebody else.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And so my dad getting out of racing and into mountain biking has that kind of perspective too.
Sure.
Like, my dad started riding mountain bikes, and then he had a friend in North Carolina that had moved for work or something, and we would come up here for family vacations, and he got us into mountain biking. And I didn't like mountain biking when he first got us into mountain biking. Like, I wanted to hike because I was a Florida kid who didn't want to be in Florida. So when he finally put me in the mountains, I was like, I just want to hike. I just want to be. I don't even want to like be going fast through this right now. I just want to be here and enjoy this. Like, look at this. This is gorgeous. And so I wanted to hike. I didn't want to ride. And I was like early teenager, just not really into mountain bikes yet. And then as I got a little older, I ended up enjoying just cross country pedaling in Florida, where it was like entertaining exercise. It was just meditation, go out to the local trail, pedal out a bunch of hours, you know, just whatever. And then I moved full time into my van, and I immediately said, okay, I'm out of the state. This bike's going to have to get upgraded.
Mhm.
And so I got my first full suspension in April of 2023. And then I just started hitting different mountain bike spots along the way too. So when I was traveling full time, really the draw of where I was traveling was like, I'm kind of just keeping an eye on like what's worth going to throughout the country. Like, do I want to meet up with a friend on this other part of the country? Do I want to go to this BMX jam that's happening? And so it was like, do I want to see like, I'd go up to the Northeast to see my family, for my Nana's birthday, things like that. That would draw me to different parts of the country. But really, I was just going where the wind took me, and very much based on BMX events. It was like, this cool event's happening here, and then it's pinballing me there, and then I can go here and I can connect it there. And so as I'm driving throughout the country, I was also getting to hit a lot of different mountain bike spots too.
Cool.
Met a friend along the way, got way heavier into mountain biking, was like, I want to do a whole lot more of this. I want to know a whole lot more of this. That's the part of the story, because that's when we got to meet. Yeah. And then it's just fallen in love with it further and further ever since.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So from just entertaining exercise to now
giving me a race drive again,
yeah.
I think, is the thing.
So you had never, did you know anything about downhill or at all, or mountain bike racing much before we met?
So Amelia,
or was it when
like,
just through Amelia
exposed me to it,
okay,
talking about it, and I didn't really even know what to apply the information to, because I wasn't the type to ever like go and sit
and
on my
figure it
phone.
out? Sure.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I'd be engaged in conversation, and then by the time I touch my phone again, it's like I just don't touch my phone that often. I'm not the type to go to YouTube and look things up. So I never even looked up what downhill mountain biking was, period. We talked about it.
So you probably...
She just exposed me more to like what trail rides we were doing, and like just doing fun new things where it wasn't just a trail ride. We push back up the trail to go session a gnarly line and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, cool, this could be fun.
Right.
And just pushing the limits and not just being out on a trail ride to just be out on a trail ride. It started becoming like, hey, let's push back up and use this as a progression spot. And like, let's try really hard to get this line that we're trying to do. And it was like, oh, this is fun. And,
Kind of like you do for dirt jumps or skate park spots.
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I guess just hanging out with her through the course of our travels, I don't know, I just became more interested in it. And then she knew that my loose plan was bringing me. Oh, I had been to Jared's place. Jared's place was my first downhill park.
That's right.
That was before I met her. But like that's still such a flow trail that I like
Sure.
everything.
Jumps.
Yeah, I probably didn't touch any of their tech my first time there. I was like on all of their jump lines. And so for me coming from the BMX background that I have, getting on my new mountain bike, literally like the weekend I got my new mountain bike, I went to Jared's place
Nice.
and I'm jumping double wide. I'm like, this is what mountain bikes can do. This is awesome. Okay. And
They're
so
the best.
that got me way more into it for one. Like Jared's place
Cool.
definitely helped me fall in love with mountain biking. And then
Josh, Jared, thanks guys.
yeah, you guys are the best. Yeah, and then I met Amelia during our travels. And then so we were riding a bunch more other places, but Jared's place was my first ever downhill park.
Mhm.
And I looped back there a couple times, but then Amelia knew my route was passing through North Carolina around the time of there being the open ride day at Rock Creek.
Mhm.
And so she's like, put this on your calendar. You should come out. It's going to be a good time. A bunch of people are coming out. I'm like, passing through. That works out. I get to stop. And so my first time at an actual downhill park, I was like, holy shit, I'm
Like
in over my head.
in terms of like actually, not that
Just how
Jared's is,
steep. This
yeah,
I was
but
on like
more
easy
like
A.
tech.
This
Yeah.
was it was just so steep. And this was even when I got to be on the demo that actually had good brakes. But even then I was like, holy shit, this is
Next level.
I'm intrigued, but I'm way above my pay grade right now.
Sure.
And so I got to demo the Spindrift propane on
Mhm.
Saturday, and then whatever downhill bike they have.
Mhm.
No, whatever it was back to back.
Yeah.
The first I was on a
Yeah,
downhill
downhill
bike
bike
the day before I met you. That's what was funny.
Yeah.
So my first time ever touching a downhill bike was the day before I met you.
For context, I'm maybe one of the biggest downhill mountain biking nerds.
It's extremely convenient as I'm
Yeah.
trying to learn about this sport. And I said, I just found myself a walking encyclopedia on this sport. This is awesome. And so I've been picking his brain ever since.
I've got a riding and racing and training buddy that I didn't have to twist her arm into doing the things that I want to do together. So it just works out great. But just context. So we made it Rock Creek, and then we did. Let's see, because you didn't come to a race or a bike park at all until Windrock,
Mhm.
right? And so I guess your first time being exposed to to downhill racing was Windrock, right? And you got to hang with us.
My first time seeing it, like doing track walk with you, I was like, I love the way that you're picking apart this track, the way that I would pick apart a bowl of like, if I hit this line from this angle and I can like pop into this transfer line, if I, whatever this, that, and so on, of how I want to puzzle together a line I want to hit in a bowl and ride that a certain way, or even a set of dirt jumps, like dirt jumps is much more straightforward. It's not as much creativity unless there's transfer opportunity, but it was more like I related it to riding like a wide open bowl that you can find what lines you want to hit, like what hip lines connect together, like things like that. You
Mhm.
are doing track walk and you're saying out loud like what lines you're looking at, and like if you hit that root gap to that transfer line, and I'm like, oh wait, oh cool. So that's the same creativity that I love about freestyle that exists right here. That's fun, but this is gnarly. So I love that we get to appreciate this on the same level because I can appreciate what you're talking about. And I love that. But I don't care to do that for myself because that's gnarly. And then somehow through the course of then like the year ahead, just riding that much more, fast
Mhm.
forward to spoiler alert, I was like, this looks like a lot of fun. I want to do this.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Mm.
Windrock was my first exposure to downhill,
Still
and
haven't been back
I
there to
still
ride.
haven't been.
We
Yeah,
gotta
still
we
haven't
gotta
been
get
to
you back
ride
there
it.
to ride. Especially with the stuff we've ridden in the last couple weeks, both being back home on trail bikes and at Mountain Creek and Killington, some of the other downhill parks. I think you're really gonna like Windrock.
Yeah.
So That'll be fun. But I guess, but in the way you've described it to me is that it's kind of the happy medium between. You get that creativity, and this is why I love downhill too. I came from a bunch of other sports, which we'll get into next week, but you still have the creativity of, you know, there's tape over here, there's tape over here, there's a bunch of rocks, roots, trees, and trail and dirt in between, and you just have to get from the top of the mountain to the bottom as fast as you can. You have full freedom and creativity to go anywhere on that track to make it happen. So where enduro or cross country, you do a lot more riding in terms of like riding different variety of trails. With downhill, it's like this is one puzzle, and you have 3 days to figure it out, and you get one chance to get it right. And that to me is such a fun challenge, um, that I love, and you kind of expressed it being the same creativity of freestyle, but then you still have the racing intensity from BMX racing.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nobody that can crash you out.
Yeah.
It's still
That's why I say it's like
it's
the perfect
still
love child.
just you on your bike, you against the clock, and you're the master of your own destiny. If you prepared and if you are on good lines and if you're committed, you can succeed. If you're goofy and not committed and make mistakes, then the only person, if a mountain bike race, if a downhill race doesn't go well, the only person you have to blame is yourself. But with downhill, you don't get that. There's not a lot of petty, cutthroat bitterness. You get that from all levels. You see the guys at the top, Loic and Jackson, like
Yeah, I remember the
hugging it
video
out.
you showed me where it was just like, I think it was Loic. It was him being like giving Jackson the biggest hug. He's like, "I'm so glad I beat you," and Jackson's like, "I know." And it's just like, I love this sport.
It's such a big family, like, and that's what I guess you can miss out on from team sports and a lot of individual sports. Is you miss that camaraderie, but with downhill, somehow we get the camaraderie and the team mentality and the collaboration from the very people we're racing against, which I think is super special. Um, and so I'm excited to go racing with you next year. We're gonna need to chase it.
Yeah.
So I guess hit me with some goals, athletically. And so with Kinetic, we have our own race team, and so there's us, and we have a couple teammates that we're gonna go race next year. You want to give a little about that and what you're hoping to accomplish, and then we'll dive into the coaching side.
Yeah. I don't know how to put that one. So it's like my first downhill race, I ended up on third. Second downhill race, I got second. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm not sandbagging because I'm not winning. That's fine. And then still looking at like what the time results and everything looks like, I'm like, well, but I'd still rather be in Cat 1 because then you get seating. Practice seems way less hectic. You get a better practice schedule. And then I'm on track with people that I know are less like,
But
it's like I don't know if
it's a
I can
lot of
follow
new,
anyone in. It's not
yeah.
like
It's
it's
a
like I don't know anyone within the practice to be like I can open up this feature with a friend. Like
yeah.
there's like
I'd describe it as most of Cat 2-3 practice. Everybody's trying to figure out how to get down the track. First day of practice. Cat 1, by day 1 of practice, everybody's pretty comfortable riding the track. They're just trying to figure out how to go fast on the track. On first practice session, nobody's trying to figure out how to get down the track. Everybody's already doing it. They probably hit all the features first lap, and they're confidently already pushing the pace. And then you get to pro, and people are on race pace or close to it within a couple laps. So I think where your skills immediately were on the mountain bike, the first national race we went to this year, you were capable of doing a full run like lap 2, lap 3.
I was a mudder.
Yeah,
I was not capable of doing a full run on the mudder day.
But there
one.
was one section you had to figure out.
Yeah.
And beyond that, like there were a lot of people in your practice session that I observed because I was track walking during your practice, and there were a lot of people trying to figure out like every section of the track, and you pretty much were able to like drop in and piece your way down at first lap.
Yeah.
Which it's hard. Then I think what you're kind of hinting at is you're ready to I think your level is at the top end. You're ready to chase people that are more proficient. So we're going to get you into the expert category, and then I know you've
Yeah, and then looking
got
at it, I
goals of
was
going
looking at
even
the
higher.
results. I saw that there's not actually any women really that are. There's not consistently a lot of Cat 1 riders in my age division, and so I'm like, well, at that rate, I might as well set the goal to be pro if I want to actually, all I'm going to do is race the same track and then compare my time to the pro class instead if there's not anyone to compare against in my class. And so why not just set the goal to be able to race pro by the end of the year? So especially
Love
by
that.
the US Open, like there's no reason I
Absolutely.
can't just enter the open and see where I land there. So it's like going to take a lot of seat time, a lot of training because I'm definitely not there yet.
Hmm.
But like this sport has just gotten more and more fun the better I get at it. And it's really funny because realizing like I didn't have that same drive with freestyle BMX that I feel that I have with downhill. And I think I saw something funny. I mean, everyone's putting everything out there as to like the ADHD brain loving something like downhill, something you have to like fixate yourself on. And I, we were watching something the other day. I don't know what it was, but just the high speed runs and everything
Hmm.
like that. I realized how focused I have to be to ride downhill. We went the other day to Rock Creek, and I felt like I just had everything going on in my head when I was like, we were on some of the chiller blue trails, and
We warmed up on a blue
I
trail
was
and
like,
you were
I'm
very uncomfortable.
exhausted. Like, I was just exhausted from the day prior. And then it was like, should I be doing this with my time instead? Like, I have so much work I need to be getting done and running these things through my head. I'm like, and I'm like so sore. I feel like I'm not even safe on my bike right now, trying to like grab brake when I need to and things. And then I'm like, complaint, complaint, complaint. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I'm here. I need to make the most of this. Like, what am I doing? And you're like, you want to hit easy A? And I was like, oh, well, at least my brain knows to lock in on that trail.
Let's go ride one of the racetracks.
And so I'm on the track and I'm just pinned and all of the problems are gone. Because I just like, it's just high speed pinned and not thinking about anything else because you can't think about anything else. And so I think that's kind of the taste of loving downhill is it's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
You don't get a chance to be complacent. You got to be all in.
yeah,
And you perform your best when you're full focused.
yeah.
I like it. Then I know there's something that we haven't talked about yet that we want to, and I think that'll be a good lead into what we're doing with Kinetic.
Mm.
But you mentioned a long-term knee injury that you've had, Osgood-Schlatter's disease. Maybe start with kind of what is Osgood-Schlatter's? How did that come up? And I know it kept you from racing a bit this year, down because we planned on racing a full season of downhill this year together. Um, so I guess maybe quick, how did that injury come up? How have you managed it? And then finally we've solved that problem this year. But how has that come about? And kind of what has that taught you?
So Osgood-Schlatter's disease, for those on video, it is when the my bone grew faster than the tendon when I was about 10. And I'm racing BMX at this time too. And so I'm right foot forward out of the gate and I'm pounding. I ended up with this condition in both of my knees where I just had that lump over from the patellar tendon that was just starting to pull up on the tibia. And it just is a sharp, uncomfortable pain. And I went to doctors as a kid. And, when it first happened, it was like, well, here's these knee braces and just stop anything that hurts it. I'm like, you just stop anything that hurts it. Okay. I gave up tennis, I gave up Taekwondo. And then it's like, the track is kind of what keeps me sane. And I didn't quite feel willing to give that up. And
Yeah.
so I was like, BMX doesn't hurt it that bad. It was just the one I was like, I'll give up the other things, but I'm not feeling willing to give that up. And it was just one of those things that I lied and I was like, it doesn't hurt.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm a 10-year-old kid,
Of
whatever, like,
course.
you know. And so by the time, you know, I was 17 and this issue is still going on, nobody in that time ever was like, physical therapy is a thing. And it was like, I just didn't know any better. Like, school gym class didn't teach you anything. And like, everything is still going on in life. And I'm still going to doctors and trying to get like different opinions from different doctors. And it's always just wear this brace and that's it. And I'm like, this isn't doing anything. And somebody finally sends me to a physical therapist when I'm 17. By now, this condition's already now permanent. The tendon had disconnected from the bone. And I'm pretty sure even back at that time, they told me. I'm like still trying to remember because back in May of this
Mhm.
year, the doctor told me, yeah, there's a sliver of bone. Let's go get this removed. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm pretty sure that sliver of bone was there even from when it
Mhm.
was confirmed permanent at the age of 17. Um, but pretty much I just through the years ended up tearing that and it pulled off a piece of bone with it that was just floating. And so back in May of this year, 17 years dealing with this condition now from the age of 10, and then
Mhm.
um, just, yeah, it was just go in small incision, pull out that sliver of bone, rough up the surface of the tibia again, and hopefully just get that tendon to stick back down. And it's not a guarantee that the tendon's going to stick back down, but the main part of my pain was that sliver of
That
bone.
bone spur.
And so, yeah, they've got that removed. And then it was just patience and waiting. And they said, 4 to 6 week recovery. I was like, that's amazing. And it turns out that's for like walking upstairs. That's not for action sports. And so I've been going stir crazy this whole summer, just like, okay, when can I do things again? And just getting my knee back up to strength and not being, foolish like I was as a teenager of not taking the time off. I
Mhm.
didn't take the time off as a teenager because I didn't know any better. And now as an adult, I'm like, okay, I need to let this thing fully heal and I need to be really cautious with it because I cannot make this chronic condition last even longer. Like I've got a surgery now that should make it like I should be pain free. And so now it's like 98% healed, I'd say. Like I still feel some of the discomfort that I'm working on getting
Mhm.
like all of the muscle group around it strengthened back up now that
Mhm.
I have full mobility. But
Yeah.
yeah, that kind of relates to like where my passion for fitness even came from because my appreciation for physical therapy then started at that age at
Mhm.
17. I get to pick the brains of the physical therapist that I got to go to and the imbalances that I had in my body. It was like, okay, well, I have a problem with my right knee. So now also my hips are completely out of line and causing me back problems because I'm constantly limping and now I need to strengthen the different muscle groups just to straighten my body back out. Like my leg was longer, like the way my muscles were pulling, one of my legs was longer than the other. I was like just all out of whack because I wasn't taking care of my body properly. And I
Mhm.
just was like, you mean all I have to do is exercise and I can fix all of these things? This is awesome. And so I started kind of just diving into the weeds. And then anytime something came about, I got to know there's a solution to this problem. There's a solution to this pain that I have. And then it's funny because I look back, I almost think like there was a point in time that, I'm still racing BMX. And so you take a lot of falls there. Like it just, as I said, like you're racing the national level, like that's shit happens sometimes. And so I'm hitting the ground here and there, and my body's usually hurting. And I'd be at the gym and I'd be frustrated that my body hurt. I'd be like feeling like I'm hindered from working out and doing what I wanted to do because of like the pain my sport was putting me in. And then it was like, okay, but how do I solve this problem instead? And so I always came at everything I faced with the scope of, okay, but there's a solution to this problem. What do I do instead?
Mhm.
And so I got to learn how to work and rehab like any muscle group that was injured. And then when I broke my back, by then I already knew how important movement and mobility was. And so, especially like once I had my second surgery and I was able to be up and about and like drive myself around again, I'm still in a back brace and I'm going to the gym and just doing what I can. I'm
Mhm.
like, let me go on the stair elliptical thing and just, walk and get myself going and let me do some of just the machine based items that I'm like not lifting anything with my upper body, but I can do certain things with like some of the lower body machines. And I remember somebody thought I was in like a weighted vest. I'm like,
Oh boy.
nope, nope, I've got a broken spine.
Yeah.
Like,
Your hardware is
I'm
internal,
just,
not external.
yeah. And so it's like, I think that big factor I learned with that one was like, do what you can. And I love that Casey said that one last week because I'm
Mhm.
like, that resonated with me because it's literally like, if you're down and out, like, you don't have to be completely out.
Mhm.
There's still some motion you can
Yeah.
do. And keeping myself going is what saved my sanity for that as well. And so through life I always got to have that to fall back on especially.
Mhm.
And so it's just yeah, at this point now, grown into something much bigger, and I want to share that, you know, passion and knowledge and s-
Mhm.
lifestyle with other people of like, don't take no for an answer is kind
Yeah.
of how I've lived.
Yeah. And I know we're both aligned on this piece, but longevity on top of that.
Hmm.
Like, you know, I talk about I'm equal parts training for pro downhill series next year, and hopefully we get to ride trail bikes with our grandkids one day.
Yeah,
And I go to the gym every day training for both of those things,
yeah,
and that's a big thing that we are aligned on, I think, and that we
yeah,
try to help other people achieve as well. With
yeah. And my big thing, especially, is like I don't have the option to not be fit
right,
because of my spine. I mean, I would be in probably pretty excruciating pain if I didn't keep myself active on a regular basis. I don't know why I said probably. You've seen me if I have to,
yeah,
you've seen me when I was coming back from my knee surgery and I was hindered on certain movements that I could do. And I'm like, it's easier to just not do them. Yeah, it's not easier to not do them because it's much harder to get yourself back out of pain. And so I had the knee I was healing from. And then on top of that, my back started to flare up again because I couldn't do the certain mobility exercises I wanted to be able to do. And there was things I could do instead, but I wasn't doing them. So it's like, you
the
know,
compounding issues of what is that? Like an ounce of pre-work is worth a pound of post. It's the same with fitness. Like an ounce
mm,
of prehab is worth, you know,
yeah,
doing a little bit every day, a little bit of prevention, a little bit of
yeah. Yeah. So it's like
maintenance is
all my
better than
longevity is like also for making sure I get to do the things I want to do for life and also, yeah, for
absolutely.
everything that future gets to hold. So,
You've got a lot of wisdom from all of your experiences, and I'm excited that we get to share with other
yeah,
people.
me
That
too. Yeah.
hopefully can help some other people. Well, I had written down how did that path eventually lead to you and I teaming up to build Kinetic. I think that covered it pretty good. Is there anything else you want to add on the um, either the coaching side, the business side, or the racing side with Kinetic that you want to touch on?
I don't know. I feel like,
Otherwise, I've got a couple wrap up questions that I think will be good. But
yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot that's just like such a broad one that I'm like,
absolutely,
there's a
there's
lot
tons
to
we're doing.
pull from.
Sure,
So it's like I don't know. I'm excited for everything we're building.
cool.
Excited to see what more it gets to become, and I'm
Hmm.
excited to get to use what my actual like core passion is for the life work that I'm doing. Because the work I was doing before, I got to sit and question and realize, like, I'm really good at coaching, really good at helping people, and I kind of really love helping people. And so
Hmm.
this is kind of what I want to do with my time instead. So
That's awesome.
yeah, I'm excited to grow and see what it gets to become.
Yeah. So I guess I got two wrap up questions, and then maybe we'll plug the work you're doing now and before we close this out. But for one, looking back, what is the biggest lesson that the last 20 years on two wheels have taught
Keep them rolling.
you? That's good.
If you want to phrase the question that way, simple as that,
Sure.
just keep moving. Like life gets hard, but even at a slow pace, just keep rolling, keep the momentum, do whatever you can, one foot in front of the other,
Mhm.
or life's like a bicycle. You just keep rolling.
Nice. I like it. And then, what do you want other athletes, especially women, to take away from your story or your experiences or the things we've talked about today?
I feel like the things we talked about was much more on like such a broad on each one, but it kind of just is like find your thing that you love, find what sets your heart on fire, and just do it. And don't put further pressure on yourself because if you're like, I'm not really enjoying this as much anymore, do a different version of it. And
Mhm.
especially as a woman in the sport, like just existing in a male dominated sport and just it's just as much our space as it is theirs. Like, it's more welcoming than people portray it to be. I think everyone gets a different experience with it, but it's always been very inclusive. I don't know. Just do what you love.
Yeah. Like for us, it's mountain biking.
Yeah.
And so a big piece
Yes.
of us
It's
getting to,
BMX, it's mountain
yeah,
biking, it's hiking,
yeah,
it's being outdoors, it's trail running. Like,
mhm,
don't put yourself in a box either. Like, that's the thing
yeah,
too. Is like my identity. I think at a point in time, my identity was bikes, and I
mhm,
think through the entire course of this conversation, we started this off as to like, you've been on bikes your entire life, so what's the story on that? So this entire story has been about the bike background, and I
sure.
literally felt like I was struggling to be able to talk about that because I'm like,
It just
it's
is.
not my identity anymore, and there was a point in time that it was.
Mhm,
um I love doing it, and I also love doing a lot of other things,
yeah,
and it is what consumes like the bulk amount of my time and keeps me the happiest. But like, I also want to go hiking, I want to
yeah,
go on trail runs, I want to travel the country for other reasons more than just it being for riding bikes.
absolutely.
And so it's like, don't put yourself in a box either. It's like,
Perfect.
just live life and do what you want to do. Keep your body fit so you can play for life. That's my big one.
Exactly. Cool. Well, that's a good way to, um, I guess, plug kind of the work we're doing with Kinetic and the coaching you're doing with our clients now, but um, helping people kind of operationalize that of,
Find what
so,
works for you.
yeah, say a
Yeah.
little bit about what it takes to continue to do, because we everybody talks about, oh, everything gets harder as you get older, but that doesn't mean it's impossible, right?
Mhm.
Like whether it is hiking or running or riding a bike or playing soccer, of all like take your pick.
Mhm.
Um, what can people kind of expect either um, within our community with Kinetic or within your coaching? Like, what are some of the things that you help people unlock to be able to continue to do those things, enjoy those activities for life?
It's finding one, like, what's the why, because especially as, things will get harder as, aches and pains come up and all of that. And nobody wants to go to the gym. I don't want to go to the gym. But what I love about being at the gym is that it gives me the drive. Like, I feel the drive at the gym because I start to visualize and feel the power that it's giving me for the things I want to be doing outside of the gym.
Mhm.
And I think the biggest thing is I've been working with people on figuring out, like, one, how do you work through this obstacle you are facing? Like, is it an ache? Is it a pain? Or is it your brain keeping you unmotivated? And so it's a variety of different things that can, you know, come up there. I don't know. What's like,
Yeah, that exactly that exactly that.
whether it be like you feel like shit because you eat like shit, or your brain doesn't want you to do the things that you actually want to do. It's like, well, your brain's going to talk you out of it, but you're allowed to have an argument with your own brain. Like,
Yeah,
you're allowed to, you know kind of get yourself out of that comfort zone and do the things that you want to do instead. So it's just, it's, as you said,
absolutely. It takes all.
it's all three: mindset, nutrition, fitness. It's just all of it. It all comes together
Yeah,
like an ocean.
exactly. Awesome. Well, you have any other last closing notes for us? Otherwise, we can just sign this thing off and tell
Yeah.
everybody thanks for watching, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for the questions. Thanks for listening. I feel like I have more of a, like, there's much more, but I feel like there's like,
Oh yeah,
that was just the easiest way to give the
I feel like we gave a good.
intro. I don't know. That was a tough one.
Yeah. If there's anything we didn't cover, or if you guys watching didn't get questions answered this time, feel free to chime in the community, or reach out to us directly, and uh, let's chat about it. So that's kind of what we built this whole community for, is to be able to discuss these things. What are we doing to be able to keep our bodies in moving? What's worked for us, what works for us might not work for you, and what works for you might work for somebody else. So the more we can collaborate and help each other out, that's what kind of our whole community is all about. So feel free to chime in, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.